Alright, morning. Alright, this is your P3 revision booklet. We've broken it up into 4 weeks. But it doesn't necessarily mean we follow like week 1, week 2, week 3. We use the questions as I consider to be appropriate. We will start off our questions on week 1. In your revision kit, we try to keep the questions related to the early part, followed by the next part, the middle part, the end part. Giving you time to get your reading up to date so you can benefit as much as possible from the revision. But of course, that is not always possible because the questions are integrated. So it's sometimes not possible to pull off a particular part from another part. We will try to go through as many questions as possible in details, in the sense that you get an opportunity to ponder the case, ponder the requirements, write answers in some instance, or write the points. While not formal answers, maybe write the points that you would bring up as answers. Some of them we'll just discuss as a group, right? But the idea is to try and get as much practice as possible between now and the end of April to lead into the workshop in May. Alright? The booklet also has some knowledge quizzes, again to help strengthen your knowledge, so you can try those as well. And it can't be all work and no play, so we give you a little humor in there, we give you a little quiz in there, right, to mix it up a bit. Alright? So do try the quizzes, try the brain teasers, etc., etc., etc. Alright? Alright. So here's what we're gonna do for the first. How does the person not realize that the door is open? Yeah, P2 as well? Oh. Alright, so the first question is a 25-mark question. It starts on page 3 and the requirements are on page 4. Alright? So one of the things I want to do is to get a baseline as to where everybody is. We're going to account for not up to date with your knowledge yet and those kind of things, but we want to see if you can interpret the requirements and if you can figure out what to use from the case. Alright? So for question 1 on pages 3 and 4, I want you to attempt it as if you were doing an exam question, like you were doing it in the exam. Alright? And then we will review it as a group. So go ahead, and of course there will be time pressure as well. So I'm giving you not the normal 45 minutes to do this, but 40 minutes.
It's an open test, right?
Sure. It's not really a test, but open book practice. But you know, open book might slow you down though.
Which other friend? I think Damien then? I think so. I want to. Yeah. Zeno, yes. Francis get it now one year. So she and Candice there. She and somebody like.
Question 1 on page 3. Page 3. Page 3. Question 1. Alright. So let me hear what you guys have for me now, so that we can know the baseline how I work with. Required: A. Evaluate the strategic position of the estate with specific reference to the expectations of stakeholders, to the external environmental factors beyond the control of the estate, and to the strategic capabilities of the estate itself. 15 marks. And I saw some persons were looking back in their notes, and if you notice, when you look back in the notes, you saw those very 3 things at the start, right? In that diagram there. And it falls within the section called strategic position. So it's really that the 3 things they wanted to do in that first part of the question. Right? So let's start. Who wants to start?
As a gift to a charitable trust 10 years ago.
So for 40 minutes, that's what he wrote.
Oh. So I reached the part where I was just, I need to write the introduction and then speak to the strategic position based on the external environment, the expectation of the stakeholder, and the strategic capability.
Okay. So you wrote something around those.
Only for the expectation of the stakeholders. I know that because it's a charities, it has a lot of stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the conditions is that they have to make it free and accessible to the person.
Mm-hmm.
So with too many stakeholders, they will have a lot of persons set to meet. So we can use the menu thing to decide who we want to
Okay.
ignore and who we don't.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm.
Stakeholders identified from the case current homeowners, stakeholders, trustees, beneficiaries, and regular visitors,
Mm-hmm.
and the employees and volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them have different expectations of the estate. Private and environment.
All right, come on, go ahead.
Private homeowner expects to live in peace and quiet person by one homeowner from a village on the estate. This group has a low interest in the condition of the gift and also low power, so minimal effort relationship will exist.
Okay, why you say that have low?
Low power.
Yeah. And who was that you were saying have them here?
Private homeowner.
Oh, the private homeowners. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, why you say that they have what they have?
Low interest.
Mm-hmm.
They based on the condition of the estate,
Mm-hmm.
or stress about the estate was left to the
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't matter to them because they live in the village and although the village is part of the estate,
Mm-hmm.
the beneficiary part is not really no matter to them. As far as
We don't know the estate varies and so we don't upkeep the prices of their property. We wouldn't. One of them have a high interest.
okay. The renters, there are occasional users of the properties in the villages, and they're not another condition of the gift. This group also has a low interest and low power.
Which one is that?
The renters,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a minimal effort relationship.
Okay.
The trust is on the estate are responsible for executing the function of the gift. They're an important group of stakeholders depending on them to ensure that function with the high interest but low for.
Okay.
Beneficiaries or the visitors and the intended users of the upland and the forest are the key players because they are high interest and high for stimulation.
Okay.
So, and the things I can explain how they relate to the people that know with the relation.
Okay.
The employees and the volunteers, they are the ones who are doing the day-to-day execution of the gift
Mm-hmm.
of the trust of the God. The day-to-day running of the estate,
Mm-hmm.
and they are also key players because if they decide, the 45 of them decide that they're not going to do anything,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have a strike or going to use the estate of admin, then that can let the payment go more than it is as what they're expecting.
Okay.
So they're key players.
Okay. That's it?
For me,
Okay. Anybody else?
Sorry, I just want to say, for the volunteers with the list, she has listed who they need to list all those and who they need to see the level of interest and power for all of them for each.
Alright, I'll soon get to that. I made a note here. So I'll soon answer that question for you. Anybody else?
so before you start, when I looked at the marks for the brain, so it was 15 marks for the question.
Mm.
So I identified 3 requirements in the expectations,
Mhm.
the external factors, and strategic capabilities. So I said there's 3 requirements with each 5 marks each.
Mhm.
So I said 5 marks for the stakeholders,
Mhm.
to identify who all the stakeholders are, and then on the external environment factors, what they look for, what those are, and then on the capabilities, and the knowledge of the staff,
Right.
help, and the help was, those are the capabilities.
Okay. Then what you had for external environmental factors beyond the control of the estate?
The income, the money from the government, the grants from the government, that was outside of their control.
Mhm.
There's a lot of
The weather, the changes in the weather.
all weather,
Yeah. Mhm.
the weather change, okay.
Mhm.
The weather changes.
And we have more and more persons in there talk about rights and those kind of things. The technology could probably hinted in there. All right. All right. Here's one of the ways we're kind of expecting the revision sessions, including the ones on Tuesdays, to work. We need a basis to begin. All right. And so the basis is you guys. William gave me a very little basis a while ago, but at least he did give me one basis. Right? Sherry, talk away and said I'm writing something. You give me? Then I write something so I can get a basis. Because when I have a basis, something that you write, something, it kind of shows me how your brain is working, and then I can then do an adjustment to try to see, all right, you're on the right track, but do this, right? Or you totally on the track at all, you need to come on the track. But I don't want to just stay here and recite the answers, because the answers are also in your booklet if you realize. Because I want you to actually practice the questions and then go back and check them. So I'm not expecting that you're going to cheat yourself. Okay, you're not going to benefit you. Right? That you're going to look at the answers and then so that's not helping anyways. What I want is Even those that we don't go into in details in the class, you can still do it and go back and check. So I try to make it easy as possible so you don't have to go searching on the website to find the answer where the stuff is. Because all of these questions are available on the website anyway, and so are the answers. Alright? So that's not it. So what I want is a feedback so that then now I can then say, do this, do that. You gave me a feedback, and from that feedback there are some responses that I can give. Felix asked questions based on your response.
Yeah,
right, which also relate to the feedback that I'm going to give her and give the class. Right? Sherry mentioned some stuff, even though she not write nothing. Right? Right? That I also can guide the feedback. Alright? So we need, and there's a phrase that we use in P3. One of the things that you should be studying, we have something called the 6 I's that talks about the characteristics of the new type of marketing, the e-marketing using the internet. And one of the 6 I's is interactivity, which is the exchange between the customers and the company via the website. And so I need the interactivity, we need the exchange. So if we're not getting the ideas, then we kind of don't know even how to present the answers, because we could just go read the answer then, because we just recite the answer straight from the book. But when we get something now, then we can say, all right, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're looking for, you're on this path, but this is what I'm going to look for. All right? All right. And so based on the 3 responses that I get, here's how we should be tackling this question. And note, as we know, pointed out, it's a 15-mark question requiring us to do 3 things. So we can't spend all the time on the stakeholder part. We also have the environment for do, and we have, what was the next one again? The strategic capabilities too. Alright? So we need to be doing all of them. Alright, so let's start with this. So this is the question. Since this is A, you can have a little thing, a little opening comment that says the strategic position of an organization is determined by the expectations of a stakeholder, its external environment under which it has no control, and its strategic capabilities. We will examine each one in turn. Alright? So you can write that as the opening sentence that said the strategic position of an organization is determined by the same 3 things that it gives you. And then you just say, look at each in turn. Alright? So, when I start, for example, the expectations, so this is each in turn, and we start with the expectations of stakeholders. So let's hit some pointers now when writing the answer, for example. So in the first place, create subheadings for each of the 3 parts. Alright? So you can see something that's expectation of stakeholders, draw like a straight line out there, or leave it neither here nor there. Alright? Then now, tell us a little, very, very, very short summary around the expectation of stakeholders. Is that thing that we have that says, give us an explanation or a definition of around something, and then apply it to the case. And then if there's any summation, any summary that we need to come up with, we'll come up with it. Alright? So here's what I'd probably put. And I'm not going to write it out in a full sentence, because I don't necessarily want you to use the sentence that I have word for word. I want you to probably come up with your sentence, but we need to say something about the expectations of stakeholders. So we want to say something like strategy cannot be, or probably say should not. Yeah, rather than cannot. Because we know managers that have developed it without doing it. Right? So let's change it the other way. Should not without first considering the stakeholders expectations. This because the stakeholders' claims may often conflict and management must decide which is given priority. Alright, so something like that. Alright, that's it?
Something like that.
Oh, right. Right, yeah. So give us something like that. Alright? Not word for word, you can twist, you can put your own words around it and whatever, but you should understand the sense of what we're saying. Alright? And you could maybe even do it, I have it in 2 sentences. Maybe if you change it up, you can get it in one. Right? But something like this. Alright? Now, to what Vinay says and question that Felix asks. One of the things is that in many of these cases, we're going to see a lot of stakeholders. What we need to do is identify the major ones, the most important ones. We're not going to talk about everybody. So for example, in this case, there may be trustees. We know very little about the trustees and what they do. We just know have a general sense of what trustees do. Trustees not going to give me the marks. Alright? Not bringing up trustees. Alright? Because it don't really make any sense. Anything that I'm going to come up with for trustees is going to be general. It's just tough to make up out of my head. It don't really relate to the case. Even if they are mentioned in the case, the case don't tell me enough about them for me to say anything, so I'm going to leave it alone. Alright? On a general note, now this is just a general note, and then we'll see if it relates to this case. Normally, stakeholders of importance are SHRE shareholders, customers, government, sometimes community. I'm saying women, sometimes suppliers too. What's that? Employees, yeah. And probably the employees probably for community. Right? And in rare instances, maybe your people who fund you, your funders. So maybe you borrow money from the bank, blah, 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 that, even though shareholders are one of your funders. Right? So anything else, anybody else, any other stakeholder group, when you fall in another group there, think carefully before you include them. And not because I give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, don't mean a 7 of them will talk about in any one instance. Chances are it's probably 2 of them, it's probably 3 of them, where instances maybe 4 of them, but it's never 7 of them. Alright? Alright, one more piece of clarity. And again, it also relates to the question that Felix asked. Expectations of stakeholders versus management versus management of stakeholders. Different words, different meanings. Alright? This is speaking to what the stakeholders want. Alright? This is speaking to how you're going to manage the stakeholders. Alright? Both of them kind of may involve little elements of each in terms of your answer, but they're taken from different point of views. The expectations, what is it that the stakeholders want? Employees want good salary. Employees want good working conditions. Whether the employees have the power to get it now depends now on this, where we start to look at the management. So, generally speaking, when we say the word management, this is where Mendelov comes in. Alright? So this is where the level of power and level of interest comes in when we're talking about management. When we're talking about expectations, it don't necessarily mean that you need to mention anything about the level of interest or level of power. It may come into your argument in a way to say this is what they want and maybe you should give it to them because these are important persons, but you don't get into discussing the level of power and necessarily the level of interest. Alright? Alright? The management now must, so this must have Mendelov in there. This is just claims. That is what they want. Alright? And so one of the reasons why I was asking to know, I should know about whether they have a high level of power or high level of interest was to ask, to discover, to find out if it said so in the case. And in many instances you'll notice the case don't really tell us much in terms of their level of power and their level of interest. And that's because the word that is used is expectation. When you ask you about management, you may still have to make assumptions, but it will be a little clearer in terms of level of power and level of interest. Alright? Alright? So that should provide some clarity and that should answer your question as well. Yes. So the next thing now, when we look at it, alright? We'll have these groups here. We'll read the case. The most important stakeholders identified in the case is which group? The volunteers. And so because they are the most important, we speak about the volunteers first. And guess why we can't speak about the volunteers? Because he has given us information about the volunteers. Start them first. And say, look at the volunteers. What is it they want? They want to be treated, Why are they so important? Why are you bothering about the volunteers? The volunteers, the most of the work, they're the ones with most of the experience, and them do the digging. Alright? And so their expectations become important to the new management because you want to keep these kind of people on your side. They are not so easy to replace. So if you notice, we kind of go in there, but we don't actually have to mention anything about Mendelov. We're just speaking as to why they're important and why their claims are important. If it was management, we definitely have to use the phrases high level of power, high level of interest. In this case, we don't have to. So the two things overlapping, but is what is the leading, is what leads for each. Alright? So here we need to talk about what the volunteers want. And if you look in the case, because we had mentioned stuff about the volunteers, and then we said they never get, is it paid or something to the sort? Where is it again? And that, they are happy, well motivated, and fully support the current manager, right? Have become acknowledged experts through their work. I'm a volunteer and I love it here. We're happy, social group of people. I hope the new manager is not going to change things. See what the volunteer want? They want the management to remain as friendly and as sociable as the previous one, or else you're going to upset the volunteers. don't notice nowhere in there the volunteer threatening anybody. You know. They will say, if it is mega black here. But what they're saying is, we were treated with respect before, we want to be treated with respect after. That's what they want. And they need to make your point to say why the volunteers should be treated that way. Say, them are 90% of the workforce, because only 4 staff. Right? Say, at them do all of the digging and the tour guide and them know the something there and stuff. So them are important people, so treat them. And you're done with the volunteers. Alright? Then you find another important group. Now, in this case, look at how the examiner presents the stuff. So you give you a bunch of stuff in there, a bunch of people in there. But here's how I would break it out. I break it out into customers, and I break it out into the community. Right? So these are your residents, because the residents are not your customers. Alright? And them are the visitors, but look at the visitors. The visitors, they have 2 different sets of visitors, that's all. Well, they have many different sets, but you have one that says, I'm a cyclist and dog in the way. What dog I do there, so and that. Then you have the dog owners who don't like the cyclists. Right? And there's a dog of people to and them have rights and blah blah dee da da. So here's one of the things. Look at the word that we mentioned up here, so. May often. And we need a way to show that the shareholders' claims conflict with each other. The volunteers not conflict with nobody. Well, you know where the conflict is? Between the customers. So within the customer grouping, there's conflict. And there's conflict between the customers and the community. Show them. So that's why, apart from I'm not calling them the employees, but we have employees here, but it's not really the employees we're interested in, it's really the volunteers. First one, the volunteers. Second one, the customers. Show me the conflict between the customers. I took a long drawn out thing to show me. I said, some of them are cyclists and the dog owners don't like it. And the dog owners don't like the cyclists. So you have to find a way to manage that arrangement, because I cannot ban any, and you add that I cannot ban any of them, because of the deed that says you must allow free access. Alright? And you have demonstrated the conflict, you have demonstrated claims and conflicts. Finish with customers. Third set of stakeholders, talk about the community. And talk about their conflict. The community want peace and quiet, they can't take the congestion, da 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 da. The farmers don't want the dog mash down them thing, give me jiggy, da 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 da. Then that now is giving me the conflict between the community and the customers. Alright? 3 sets of stakeholders. That's all you need to demonstrate your point. But you don't just give me their claims, but you give me the conflicts that may exist between themselves or them and anybody else. Alright? And the main thing is coming from this. The reason why we consider stakeholders' expectations is because we need to know what they want and in conflict with anything else. Because as management's job, you will have to manage conflict. Alright? That's a part of your job, to manage the conflict. It's not evident in this case, but you could have a situation where, for example, shareholders want dividend and want as much return as possible. Employees want good working conditions. The more money I spend on employees, the less available to shareholders for dividend. That's a conflict. And vice versa. The more dividend I give shareholders, the less I have to spend on employees. Alright?
I can also make a point in this case about the government and the employees having a different degree of involvement with cutting out the funding,
Right.
the government,
Right.
and then the inherent risk that the manager will be forced to change things as a result of less funding.
Right, yes. could very well raise that as well, yeah. Alright? So remember, whenever we're talking about stakeholders, a particular stakeholder expectation, what we want to highlight are their claims and how them conflict with each other. That's why we're doing it. Alright? Many times we tend to focus only on this part, the management, which means you are bringing men along. But many times it's managing the conflict. It's identifying the conflict so that we can then know what to do. Because later on, once we know their expectations, then we're going to mendel over them to see which one we'll give priority. Alright? So that's what we needed to highlight out of that part of the question. So that would have been the first part of A. Alright? And then, because remember that was only, and remember this was only the expectations of stakeholders. It's not necessarily, it could work out in the head that it's 5-5, but it's not necessarily that it's 5 marks a piece. But what he would expect is that, let's say you wrote all your answers only on this, there's no way you would get 15. Alright? But he doesn't have it cast in stone to say the most you can get out of this is 5. You could possibly get 6 or 7 out of it, right? Which then means that you don't need to write so much in the other places. All right, but don't think you're going to get 10 out for this, or 11, or 12, or 13, or 14, or 15. All right, I could see students getting 7. I don't even know if I see it. 7. But he's not going to give all the marks to one part of the question. Alright? To the external environmental factors beyond the control of the estate. Now again, we can write a little thing around it. What does that mean? You know, we kind of give us something what it means. The external environmental factors are those outside of the control of the estate. Right? And kind of give us a definition. Right? And we can use it back. But what you would probably do is that, I'm not saying include, this includes like government or the natural environment or the community or anything like that. So it just probably does extend that definition a little bit more and just provide us some examples. Alright? And then now get into the specifics of the case now. And then since we gave government as an example, that should put your mind now to go to government. Alright, and we talk about a natural environment as well, and that should also put your mind in that direction as well, yeah. Alright, so if we're talking about government, one of the things that we can mention is that the afternoon. Alright, so mention now that the government is considering reducing its contribution. Alright? Why is that important to the estate? So you notice the first thing we do, since it's government we're on now, say what the government factor is, that they are reducing their contribution. Why am I worried, or why should the estate be worried about that? Give a reason. Because there's a reduction in your income. Alright? So your income is being reduced. And now it means that you're going to have to think of other ways to at least replace or maintain that same level of income. We don't have to suggest any ways for them to do it. We just need to point out why we are mentioning that as a factor. So for every factor that we must give a reason. So for the external environment, every factor identified um, so for every fact identified, you must give a reason or impact on the estate. Alright? So you cannot simply tell me that the government is considering reducing its contribution. That by itself is incomplete. You need to tell me what's the impact then on the estate. Alright? The fact about the second one now about the weather. So the weather is doing what now? Making the stuff. I think it's causing the building to decay faster because of the warmer weather, drier weather, whatever the story is. Right? Yeah, warm wet. I think you get yeah, so you get so it's getting warmer and getting wetter. Right. And when you get wet now it'll keep cause the thing them to grow up on the place and yeah. Right, and so that's the impact. Why we're mentioning it is because it's going to lead to an increase in their costs. This is at the same time that their revenue or income is declining. So we need to hit that point so that the market clearly say that the revenue will go down and costs will go up. Alright? And remember, look at even this one here on page 4 at the top. It says the visitor, elderly female dog walker. I was disappointed that I was not allowed into the farmland with my dog. As a human being, I have the right to roam. It's a basic human. It's a basic human right. So. So while we can, and again, we don't have to mention the specific for the where we're doing that expectation. It also is the external environment as well, because it's people's views that are changing, and you don't have control over that, right? So it means that this is something you're also going to have to deal with. That people believe that they all have rights. So when you start to think about how you're going to block one or block the other one, them are going to tell us that but we have a right. So that is something now that you need to consider, because remember what we said this is about. You cannot make strategies without considering the expectations of stakeholders, the external environment, and your strategic capabilities. And this is what we want to point out, that this is also happening in other places now. So people are claiming to have rights. Alright? So that now needs to come in, because it's not something that they have control over. Alright? And then that would wrap up our external environment. Yeah. What's that?
Can you repeat?
Oh, the thing about the rights, we said what was also is that there is a change in people's views. And part of it is that they have a right to go anywhere. They feel that they have a right to go anywhere that they want. And this is now, why is that so important? Because when it comes to then managing the expectations, you're going to have to consider that in there. That you won't be necessarily able to ban anybody or block anybody so easily, because people have a demand that they be allowed to come with their dogs. Alright? And if you notice what this person is saying, they're not saying that is the dog get banned, you know. I am a person, I am an elderly female dog walker. And yeah, block me because my dog can't come on there. So it's like you are now taking away my rights. Mm-hmm. Alright? So the view on who have rights and whether there are things like property lines and property margins and those kind of things are changing. There was a time when it was kind of like a big thing in Jamaica for a brief little while as well, when the whole idea about the public beach and all the beach spaces in Jamaica are supposed to be accessible to the public and and all have rights to it, because remember some hotels were blocking off people from But in truth and in fact, we all have the right to go up on any beach in Jamaica that we want to. Is we right? Long time. They can't block us. But it's because there's this gate to it or whatever. I wouldn't want to pass through the gate because the security asks where I come for people in property. And that gate is for them property. But the beach is not. Yeah? So that's when now we say like the old lady, I'm a human being, I have right. We go to the beach. Because let's say if we got to hit a helicopter for us drop upon the beach, then can't run with. What's that? Right, yeah. But to go through for them gate now, forget it now, that's the problem. Because I'm saying, you're not right for them on my property. Right, but like once we get on the beach, I feel the beach. And that's part and parcel of the problems that they're also facing, because you have the guys who are doing the horseback riding, which is also dangerous and them kind of thing there. Right, and this right. So yeah. So the jet ski kind of thing. So you're trying to balance everybody's rights with everybody else's rights. Because a jet ski dangerous when people just walk with horse on the thing of your horse, me let a line up on the beach and get suntan. Your ass come trample me. But it's because everybody feel that they have rights. And so the tricky thing is, how do we balance those rights without taking away them? So we all have rights to the beach, guys. But me never feel shy, so we're not going to try about the people there. Yeah.
But that's what they do.
Yeah.
I don't tell you, free to come.
Exactly.
Come over there.
Right, so. Alright, so that's the external environment. And so we raise it not as a expectation of stakeholders, but as a change in the viewpoint of people in the environment. Alright? And then the last one, the strategic capabilities of the estate itself. And again, I can write a little thing about this. For example, for strategic capabilities, capabilities. These are distinct competencies possessed by the estate. Alright, so these are distinct, and in many instances they are unique as well. Alright, so sometimes you can say, or you can add a second sentence or put it here, distinct and unique competencies. So particularly I put unique here, you should see something in the case that speaks to the idea that the thing about the only one that Kent have, them have the only thing that Kent did or whatever the story. As a large design, the garden, although no, is the only surviving example of his work in the district.
So what about one of the
Mm-hmm.
I think it was visited mentioned that that the change that what appeared to be just walls was transformed into something tangible.
That's from the volunteers. Right.
Something that was like a series of small walls and something so much more tangible.
Right.
So that is unique.
Yeah. So firstly mention the estate, the garden itself is unique. Nobody else can do it. Then look at this thing or core competencies that they have. And where does all of that reside with the volunteers? To say that the volunteers now have these technical, historical knowledge that they can do, like what you mentioned, Vinoy, and so nobody else. It's hard like any other estate or that kind of thing have them kind of skills there that the volunteers have. Alright? So the volunteers are mentioned up here in terms of their expectations. We're going to mention it in terms of strategic capabilities as well, what the volunteers can do. Alright? So you should have at least two things here. So apart from a little opening sentence, you should have two things here. The garden and the skills of the volunteers. About the external environment, you should have, what were the things we said for external environment? I thought three things up there, or something like that. The government, the warm weather, right, and the rights people, right? And up here down, up at the expectations, we're going to talk about the volunteers, the customers, and the community. All right? Alright? And that's what we do in a question like this. Alright? So one of the things, if you notice, we don't necessarily have 5 things on the 8. Where we get the marks is because presenting the evidence. So sometimes the danger is when we break stuff into, say, this is 15, so it's 5 marks, is where I try to come up with 5 points. And what we're not recognizing that we're getting marks for presenting the evidence. Alright? And not just simply writing what is found. Alright? We're getting marks for presenting the evidence, which by means we're creating the analysis. Alright? So it's not 5, 5, 5. Not 5 different stuff under that, 5 different stuff under that. That is about 3. That's about 3, that's about 2. Alright, but if we just simply write, the volunteers want things to continue as they are. No. In that case, you need 5 of them kind of in there. That's a 1 mark again. But tell me something about the volunteers. Why? Because them are 95% of the staff complement. They do the digging, the exploration, the tour guiding, You build up the stuff. Alright? Now suddenly 1 now turns into 2, or it may very well turn into 3. Alright? Alright, so that's it for part A. Questions? And again, remember, you pick up marks for giving us a little bit of knowledge as well. So give me a little bit of knowledge wherever appropriate. Tell me a little bit about expectations of stakeholders, tell me a little about the external environment. So these little thing. So the external environment is stuff outside of their control, and it can include government actions, changes in the environment, changes in public opinion, blah, 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 those kind of things. Alright? Strategic capabilities, distinct and unique competencies that the organization has that they can possibly use to gain competitive advantages. Alright? Or you can even add further, they are not easily imitated or duplicated, right? Those kind of things. So those will give you marks by the time 1 each or that kind of thing. So that's another way to pick up marks. Alright? It's just that you're not going to flood the examiner now with just book stuff. But you should give a book stuff, then get to the case. Alright? Alright? So what about part B then? And I always like a question like a part B, because part B now kind of up to you. Of course you're going to base it on what is in the case, but it's left to your imagination. Alright? Discuss how the website could be further developed to address some of the issues highlighted in the survey. So make sure when you're making suggestions on how to improve the website, link it to an issue. Alright? So find issues in the case and say how would I address it. So find an issue from somebody. Who have an issue? Oh, yeah. This is on which page again now? Meet the volunteer. Oh, right, yeah. I think it's a visitor age mid-20s. So it's like somebody where young and supposed to be.
Yeah, so
right.
probably it's not
yeah. It could, yeah. Look at what I said, but we didn't know you had a website. That means them search for it's so like them search for your website and nothing. We almost had to type in the